Right. Burnout is our topic today. So, as I said, I really would like you to be as interactive as possible on this subject matter. And it's a term that I'm going to dig a little into the standard definition, but also just to acknowledge upfront that it's burnout is, if we look at any research and statistics that's been done on burnout currently, that it is a serious phenomenon, and it is experienced by most of us. So it's not this rare, foreign, at a distance concept. It's something that you've probably, and when we go through the symptoms and the signs, you're probably going to be agreeing with me by the end of our discussion. So it's really good with most things in life is to better understand something, because we tend to we don't understand something, we don't investigate it further, and we see it as something that's not directly related to us. And so often there are many things that we are dealing with and we're not actually understanding. So before I dive into that, let me introduce myself. For those of you who have not attended one of my webinars before, my name is David King, and I'm a learning and development specialist or /activist and yeah, that is my space, which I absolutely love and am passionate about, is getting to understand why people do what they do. And for me, it's a journey of lifelong learning. So for me, I'm in a space that I'm constantly learning, and I'm also imparting information that I pick up along the way. So I did spend many years in the corporate space, in the financial industry, in retail, and in supply chain, and escaped a year and a half ago to venture out on my own, to do things like this, which I really, really enjoy. So, burnout, what is it? If you look at this image, let's start here. If you look at this photograph, what comes to mind? I want you to gaze at it for a minute and tell me what thoughts, maybe feelings, emotions, and words come to mind. And you can put up your hand and unmute, or I'm happy for you to pop it in the chat section. So I'm just going to stop sharing so I can check out the chats. Just hold on one sec. Okay, I can no longer access chats. Do you mind unmuting, so I can perhaps hear what you have to say about what you see? Oh, there we go. I can see the chats. Ignore me. Does anyone want to add peace, tranquility, beauty, serenity, calm, stress-free? Birds are out there, peaceful, tranquil, breathtaking, beautiful. Yes, correct. I think most of us have this feeling of peace, Brian, wine, no interruptions. Yes, calm, peace, harmony, and calmness. And I quite agree. And I think you possibly not going to feel that your life necessarily feels like that at the moment. It's probably feeling insane and more like a whirlwind than
Sorry about that, everyone. Our host just lost connection, but he'll be back shortly in a minute while I play this video. Sorry about that.
And I'm back. Sorry, everybody. I can't even blame load shedding. Electricity tripped. So we had a breather. I hope you had time to go to the toilet, but I am back. Okay, so let's go back to
Welcome
sharing
back.
the screen. Right. So as I was saying before we were interrupted, I'm hoping by the end of our webinar today, you will have some tools and tips and techniques to be able to survive in this crazy world. And I'm sure you've most of you probably come across the serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And why I bring this up is because we sometimes feel we are completely alone in dealing with difficult situations and dealing with life in general, but we are not. And we all have to deal with having to decide what is worth facing and what is worth not engaging with. So as I said, hopefully you will have some tips and tools and techniques, no magic wand to take away our challenges and our problems, but just things we can use to cope better. And I don't know if anybody wants to, before we go into definition, if wants to be brave and bold and perhaps share just off the top of your head things that are currently concerning you, and they can be generic. And if you want to pop it in the chat, what is on your list of problems? And it's really, if you think about it, it shouldn't be a problem identifying a problem. It's which one should I put down? So that is, if you want to pop that in the chats, what is keeping you awake at night? And you'll probably find that there is quite a lot of commonality in what we are all feeling, and as it's coming through, absolutely, we're concerned about the economy, rising inflation. Good South African, we are concerned about crime. We are naturally worried about our families. Yes, in KZN, we focus a lot on flood damage and the impact that's had personally and on other people. Finances, absolutely, and I'm glad to hear we've got in our group, we've got some finance gurus who will completely understand the realities that most South Africans now are dealing with when it comes to debt. It's not something that a small percentage of South Africans are dealing with. Most of us are dealing with debt, inability to pay back debt, including me. Future life in SA, uncertainty about what the future holds, petrol prices, politics. Yeah, we have lots on our plates, family, finances. So yes, and I'm sure all of you will be able to align to one or not more of those. And this is the reality that I keep on wanting us to acknowledge. Acknowledge it. It's not that we must deny what is happening in our world. We need to express it. We need to talk about it, but we can't fall into a pity party, because a pity party is just an absolute waste of time. Pity party gets us nowhere, because there's no outcome, there's no solution. So in one of my previous chats, we've spoken about growth and fixed mindset, and it really does begin with a mindset, how we approach our challenges and our problems. However, why it's so linked to what I'm talking about today, is that when we are burnt out, we lack the ability to think clearly. And that's when it all goes pear-shaped. We can't see through the haze and the mist and the storm. We can't see the optimism. Even though there's uncertainty, we have the inability to believe that we can get through something. So this is why we need to tackle this subject matter and why it is obviously so very important. So thank you for sharing. So let's look at the definition. I'm a great believer in context. So before we start looking at the whys and solution, let's make sure we're all on the same page as to what burnout actually means. So burnout is a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion. And how is this caused? It's caused by excessive and prolonged stress. Now, just reading that statement, excessive and prolonged, I'm sure you can all put your hand up and say, we as a society, well, as a world society, but as a South African society, we can put up a hand and say, yes, we've all been through excessive and prolonged stress. And a good example is obviously COVID and the impact that has had. It occurs when you feel overwhelmed, emotionally drained, unable to meet your constant demands. So it's just overloads. And that is why it leads to burnout, because it is just too much for us to handle. There is good news. There is a solution, as in most things in life. But in most things in life, the solution tends to revolve around us as individuals. So I'm obviously going to delve into that, because that's what we all would like to know, what the solution is to how we deal with it. But I want you to acknowledge that statement, and to acknowledge that may certainly be times, and you may certainly be feeling it right here and now, where you're feeling kaput, you are exhausted, you feel like you have nothing to give, and at the same time, you're lacking the ability to think with clarity. And that is ultimately what burnout is. It does not mean that you have nothing left. Okay, so just think about what I'm saying there. Listen again. It doesn't mean you have nothing left. You feel that you have nothing left. So let's look at the signs and symptoms, and it's almost like a tick box exercise for you as we go through these. And there's much research on the subject matter, and it's a very interesting topic. So I encourage you all to post this chat to actually go and delve a bit deeper. So I've had to obviously condense it. There's so much more information, but what I've had to do is I've tried to clear all the clutter and focus on what the key learnings are, and what we need to do. In other words, it's how do we spot that we as individuals or those around us, a lot of you are representing your organizations, but remember, you're human beings first. So my philosophy around any form of development is I focus on the human being first, because if you don't get yourself sorted, you cannot assist and support anybody else around you. You cannot help your family, your loved ones, your friends, your colleagues, and your team if you do not sort yourself out. So the first step is to identify yourself and where you fit in, and then you are able to help others around you. So how do you spot if you've got burnout? And these are some of the telltale signs. And psychologists tell us if we tick more than one of these, then potentially it could be burnout. It doesn't mean we're not Googling it as Dr. Google, where we feel we have an ache or pain in our elbow and we Google it and then we dying in usual case scenario. It's just to acknowledge that these could potentially be why I'm not myself. And to me, that personally is how I know when I'm not in the right frame of mind. If I'm not behaving like I normally behave, then I need to spend some time to investigate what is causing me to behave the way I do. All right, so let's look at these. The first one, have you become cynical or critical at work? Okay, so being a cynic is not something to be encouraged and to be proud of. It means potentially that you've got stuff that you're not dealing with. Are you overcritical with yourself or with your team? Do you drag yourself to work and have trouble getting started? Okay, whether that is it having the discipline to begin something, whether you're working from home or going into the office. Have you become irritable or impatient with co-workers or customers or clients? And that is my telltale sign. If I know I'm getting irritable with people and impatient because that's not my go-to place normally, then I know something is not right. Do you lack, just need to move me out the way. Do you lack the energy to be consistently productive? Do you find it hard to concentrate? Do you lack satisfaction from your achievements? Do you feel disillusioned about your life/job? Are you using food, drugs, or alcohol to feel better or to simply not feel? Have you increased that intake of alcohol in the evening? You used to have alcohol on the weekend, and now you're having it every evening. And you used to have one glass, and now you are having half a bottle or more. Have your sleep habits changed? And that's a very good predictor that something is not right. If we are not resting, if we are not sleeping, then that's a warning sign. That is the red flag, and we could spend an entire webinar on sleep, on the subject of sleep, because without sleep, little else is going to fall into place. Are you troubled by unexplained headaches, stomach or bowel problems, or other physical impairments? So key here, highlight. As you can see, burnout, the symptoms of burnout can affect us physically and mentally. Okay, so don't assume because you seem to be in control, but you're not sleeping. And as it very directly explains there, you're having bowel challenges, then consider investigating further. So I can ask you this question. Can you relate to any of these? You can pop that in the chat. How many? Oh, that's a good point. So we have 10 here. That's a very good way of putting it down. How many of these can you relate to out of 10? 3 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 6 out of 10. Yes. 2, 3, 9, 4, 5, 8, 4. And be honest with yourself. It's pointless being in denial. 4, 2, definitely 4, 5, 5. Okay, so 6. Sharon, 1. Good for you. 8. Right. So as I said, what psychologists tell us, if we have one or more of these, then potentially, doesn't mean it's burnout, but potentially something we need to investigate, because we shouldn't, if any of these are impacting us, there's something that's on our mind, that's something that is concerning us. 3 out of 10. So that be your red flag. So if there's one piece of homework that you need to do post this, is to spend some time investigating what is on your mind. And probably the best exercise you can do is to write down your problems. Okay, so just create a list, write them down. That's the start, because once we take our problem from our head and put it on paper, we are then giving ourselves perspective and we're actioning. So that's the key of action. So as soon as we action something, there's a far better chance of us doing something about it. So write your problems down, look at them, and be very concise about which ones you have impact over and which ones you don't. So tackle the ones that you do, and probably tackle the big ones that are really draining you, and then toss the ones that you have no control over. So, some of you raised the point around the economy. So we certainly can do things to support us, to buffer us, to reduce costs in our lives, to stop spending where we shouldn't spend unnecessarily. And but we don't have control over the interest rate. So that is pointless to have a sleepless night over the interest rate increase. We can then focus on what can we do to reduce our spending. Yes, Joanne, you will get the slides post this, because it's a lovely activity to actually share with your team. To say, right, come together, let's look at where we're at. How can we actually support each other? Cool. Thank you for sharing. Right, the next. Oh crap! Yes, that was the oh crap. So that was the result of you discovering now that you potentially have burnout. I want to move on now to a fundamental component of burnout, and that is feelings and emotions. So we are human beings. We are emotional. So we're not a little bit emotional. Most of us is emotional. So that's another fact, because it's backed by science, is that we are emotional beings. And for most of us, we were told to not be emotional, and particularly women in business get told not to be emotional because it might affect their ability to be promoted or be taken seriously, which is absolute crap. What we have learned is that emotions are highly necessary, and the key is, how do we manage them? How do we control them? Because emotions should not control us. What we tend to do is allow them to control us. And there is something called an emotional wheel or feelings wheel. So just very briefly, because I could also go down a rabbit hole on this story, that there are it depends on what articles you're looking at, between 5 and 6 core fundamental feelings that we have as human beings in the middle there: mad, scared, sad, peaceful, powerful, and joyful. All our emotions stem from these. So what we need to do, we need to learn, the first thing we need to do is to name our emotions. And that's what we're particularly bad at. So that's the first thing we should be teaching ourselves, is when we are feeling something, when we are not okay, we should acknowledge it and then name it. And once you name it, then you can do something about it. Then you can trace where it is coming from. Because I'm sure you've all had that experience where sometimes you not necessarily even when you wake up, but during the course of the day, something's upsetting you, and you can't pinpoint it. You don't know what it is, but we don't spend enough time investigating what it is. You might be feeling upset or hurt or anxious, and it probably came out of something that somebody said to you, something that you didn't do that you wanted to do. You may have had a fight with your partner in the morning. There may have been some road rage. You may have had a very unsatisfactory feedback session or meeting or client meeting, and you are feeling something. And that's the key, is to identify what it is. But we've never been taught these skills. We've been taught that emotions and feelings are something that we shouldn't really focus on, because we're not emotional beings. We need to be logical constantly. And we're actually not, unfortunately, to let you know that, to burst your bubble, is that we are emotional beings with a little bit of logic. Okay. I just want to see if there's, name it to tame it. Thank you, Wendy. Absolutely spot on. It is essential, because if you know what it is, then you know how to manage it. If we don't know what it is, that's why we go through the entire day being miserable and irritable and grumpy and angry, is because we never tackled what it was that caused us to feel the way we're feeling. Okay. Right. Another great learning from there's a number of outstanding researchers that I follow on this subject matter, and this shifted my whole thought process. So when it comes to feelings, what we tend to do, we tend to own that feeling. We take it on; it becomes us. So we say things like, "I am anxious," "I am nervous," or "He is a nervous person," "He is an anxious person." What we should be saying is I feel anxious, I feel nervous, I feel unhappy. It's not you. You are not a feeling, you are not an emotion. But so many of us fall into this trap, once again, because we were not taught this in life skills, that you are not a feeling. So just by shifting your language, it helps us to separate the feeling from who we are. I hope that makes sense. So let me mention that again. If you are feeling something, you say, I am feeling this. I am feeling angry. I am feeling upset. Do not say, I am angry. I am an anxious person, because you're not. You just happen to be a feeling person who happens to have anxiety at that moment in time. And what psychologists tell us about feelings and emotions is that we need to see feelings and emotions as if they're passing through us, which is very necessary. So we're not supposed to hold on to them. They're supposed to come. We need to process them, and we need to let them go. So you need to see it like that. So actually visualize it in your brain. Emotion comes in, we acknowledge it, we name it, we find out the source of the emotion, and then we let it pass on. So this really shifted my view towards emotions and my view to how I call myself, and very importantly, how we call others. So those of you with children, we can fall into this trap easily by saying, my child is very anxious, and my child is very nervous or very aggressive. They feel these things. So it's important to have this conversation with all levels, at school, in your family, with your work colleagues, and even sometimes with your line manager. Right. So I was going to show you this video, but I tested the sound earlier and it wasn't coming through. I'm going to pass on. And now it's going to play. Can you hear that? Can you hear sound? Can you say yay or nay? Otherwise I will play it. No, okay. Okay, now Simon won't go away. Let me just stop sharing. Right. And we're back. So, what Simon was talking about in that clip, Simon Sinek, if you don't know Simon Sinek, you need to know him. He is what we call now influencers. I don't like to use the word expert or specialist, because we are forever learning. So he is a current influencer on leadership. And the essence of what he was saying was around burnout, and how we need to be aware of it, and businesses need to speak up and identify when they are overloading their teams with too much to do, because ultimately that it's not a wonderful offering to know that you work for an organization that causes burnout. So companies need to acknowledge this, and companies need to be a part of the healing process, And it's definitely something that companies need to talk up and share. Those of you who have strong wellness drives in your organization, employee well-being or employee wellness is definitely a topic to raise and to engage with, and especially to highlight this with line managers, so that they can identify it within themselves, and with their team. It's naturally also a cultural issue in an organization that it may be encouraged that people, work 24/7, and that's obviously a cultural issue that needs to be challenged. But really, understanding our emotions and our feelings, and acknowledging where we're at. It goes back to this slide here around the world is a scary place, but we have armbands. So fortunately, we have tools and tips and techniques that we can use to help us survive and to help us cope. Even though we can't swim, we have armbands that can get us through. We, as human beings, are also potentially terrible at sharing our problems. You guys have been great. You did share your current challenges in the chats earlier, around finance, around family, around crime, seem to be the three top ones. But we have many excuses as to why we don't share personally with each other. So that might even be, and I'm not just talking in the workplace, but I'm including the workplace. So with your family, with your partner, with your children, with your friends, with your work colleagues, we don't share our problems. And before I give you the answer, why don't you pop in the chats? Why do you think, what stops us from sharing our problems with other people? What stops you? Because you're actually not alone. What are all their couple? There are probably 7 or 8 reasons that we don't share problems with other people. Absolutely shame, judgment, fear, don't want to show weakness, pride. Everybody has problems, they just vary, so don't want to burden other people. Absolutely. Don't want to burden, it's not my problem. We don't trust, very good. We don't want other people to know my business. It's being viewed as ineffective or incompetent, and another trust. You are all spot on. Okay, so don't think you are alone, and it's quite personal, because when I go through the list now, you'll see that one or more of them, all of them, you may be able to relate to. Because of who you are. Vulnerability, another big one. And there's amazing research around vulnerability, which I hope you realize that vulnerability is essential, but it's something that we're not sure of and we feel quite uncomfortable. So the excuses that we often have, and which most of you have shared, it's private, it's personal, excuse me, it's embarrassing, it's humiliating. Trust is a huge issue. I'm the only one. I'm the only one with this problem. And then also pointless. And those are some, or then many more. Pretty pointless. Why bother? It's not going to fix it, not going to take it away. Somebody told me the other day that you could also be blackmailed. So I thought, whoa, that's an impressive problem that you have. But these are real. So I want you to acknowledge it. But I also want you to challenge you and if we had time, I would be splitting up into groups and pairs and into breakout rooms, and you would be sharing a personal problem. But fortunately, you're lucky today. I'm not doing it with this group, but it's a really powerful exercise, because all it does, when we share a problem with another human being, it is risky. We do take a chance, but it gives us 2 things. It gives us perspective, and it gives us insights that we are not alone. Because most problems you share, the person you're sharing them with already can relate, because they've been through something similar. They are going through the same challenge as you. And if you think about the three problems that you listed in the chats, or they know someone that's going through a problem that's similar. So we tend to find every reason, every excuse not to share. And it's almost psychologically, it's a form of relief, because the person is not expected to fix it, take it away, or make it better. They're just there to listen and relate to you. And once again, more homework for you. I encourage you to do this. I encourage you to put yourself out there and take the risk and take this chance. And if you are a leader in your organization, this is what vulnerability is, because what you are saying is, I am a human being and I also suffer like you. I also have pain. I also have worries. I also have concerns. I also have children. I also have financial issues. Instead of pretending that everything is okay, because it's not okay. And I'm sure you've heard that term before. It's okay not to be okay. And we have to keep on talking that up, because that will get others to be open. And we know mental health is a huge challenge we have worldwide. And if we get people to be more open and to be more vulnerable, then we are on the right track to becoming more human. Because I think we've lost our human tendencies along the way. So, good question. In light of what I've just said, do you have a go-to spot, person, or activity? Now, why I ask you this question is because this is going to be one of your solutions to dealing with burnout. Because you may not be able to change your workload, but hopefully you can, by having an honest and open and difficult conversation with your line manager. However, there may be other parts of your life that you are able to impact. In other words, things in your life that give you energy. So think about things that when you are doing them, you receive energy. That it doesn't necessarily make the world a better place, but it just feels like you can cope in it. It doesn't take away your problem. I'm going to share with you two of mine, and then I'm going to ask you to, drop it in the chat. But before we do that, let's do that first. Do you want to just pop it in the chat as to what if you know off the top of your head, the person or the event or the activity that you do that gives you energy. Okay, good. I've got exercise, running, walking, trail, gym, running, mum, wonderful, listening to music, watching sports, exercising, music. So I missed out any. Training, beach, absolutely, concur. Good friends, sport, gym, yes, me time. Thank you, Jolene. And meditation and taking time out to reflect on the highlights of my life and what drove those achievements. And Melissa, absolutely. There's nothing at the moment. Fantastic in that you need to go and seek it now. You need to go and find out what it is. Walking barefoot in the grass, lovely. So if you don't know what it is, it's okay, because now you need to go and explore. It's often what research tells us is it's often we used to do this stuff and we stopped doing it, once again, for all our valid reasons. Gardening, absolutely. We used to do these things and we stopped doing them because life got in the way, because we have to start working. We don't have enough money. We are a parent. We don't have enough time. And yet these are the very things that give us the energy to cope with the crazy world that we find ourselves in. So I know personally, when I don't go to the beach, when I don't exercise, when I don't garden, also like to bake. If I'm not doing one of these things on a weekly basis, then I'm not myself. I can sense it. I can't think clearly. I'm grumpy. I'm miserable. So it lies within my hands, the ability to do these things. So I challenge you all once again. We set up these rules. We decide. The me time comes last. We put our family, our loved ones, our work colleagues, our work first, we drop the me time. If you drop the me time, you're not going to be effective, you're not going to be productive. So actually, the me time is the non-negotiable. But what do we all do? We drop the me time. Thank you for sharing all some good ideas there. So going back to human beings, human connection is a concept that I also really enjoy unpacking. So scientists have been busy again doing research on how long it takes one human to connect with another human being. Can you give me and don't give me a vague answer, I want a number. How long does it take for one human to connect with another human being? Throw numbers at me. Randomly, just throw them out. So the first time you meet somebody, how long does it ultimately take you to decide whether you like that person or not? 2 minutes, 2 seconds, smile, 3 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds, 10 seconds, 7 seconds, a minute, a year, absolutely 5 seconds. So it's all over the place. So this is on average. So yes, I agree. We can say it depends, because it does. It depends on our personality. It depends on the context of the situation. Depends on processing and reflecting. But the scientists love exact, and they've come up with a number, which is actually 40 seconds. It takes 40 seconds, 40 seconds a week, 40 seconds for us to connect with another human being on average. And what are we doing? What are we doing to decide whether we like this person or not? What are we using, in other words? What are we using? Okay, so you've given me a time period, but what are we using to decide whether we like this person or not? You want to pop that in the chat. Our values, good. Their personality, we're assessing their personality, correct. It's often body language. So we are looking, yes, correct, Helen, body language, they dress, how we speak, what we wear, how we stand. Do we have similar interests? Constantly doing that. Are you like me? Also, do you look like me? Do you sound like me? Can I relate to you? Attitude, are they kind? Using my gut feel, my intuition, absolutely loving all of these. You're all correct. Inner feelings. So yes, it's our lived experience. It's our value system. It's our background. It's our personality type. But how accurate is it? If you think about it, how accurate is it when you meet someone for the first time? Can you say that your interpretation of that person after 40 seconds is accurate? Yes or no? I've got not always, no, 50%. Jingle bets there, not that accurate sometimes, not always, 70%, not always. Face value, only be face value, correct, because there's no depth. Gut, correct. So it actually is completely flawed and inaccurate. 40 seconds is certainly not enough time to ascertain this. But we have this ability that we like to think that it is. And we say things like, I'm a very good judge of character. Or this person is suspect. I can't pinpoint what it is. Or we don't like the way they shake your hand. Or we don't like the way they're dressing. Or we don't like people with pink hair. So have this value system that pink hair, for example, is shady. So we make these assumptions about other people. So for me, it's just an awareness to remind us all that it's a human condition called judgment. So we all judgy. If you think you're not judgy, then you're either in denial or you're heavily medicated. So we're all judgy. It's the most normal thing for human beings to do. It's just an acknowledgement and an awareness that when we are judging others, we need to look internally first and acknowledge that potentially we could be wrong. So rather than rejecting people because they're not like us, so race, culture, gender, value system, belief system, let's rather go and explore. And let's rather go and investigate and ask questions to become more knowledgeable instead of judging. So wouldn't that make the world a far better place if we just spent the time saying, I don't understand your religion, I don't understand your views, what you said to me was offensive, and please explain how you addressed, because I'm not getting it. So you see how you shift your questioning to rather explore than to judge and reject and condemn, because that is a pointless exercise. It also makes us, if we're not open to new ways of thinking, it makes us staid, it makes us set in our ways, and it makes you irrelevant ultimately. It makes you a grumpy, miserable human being if you refuse to adapt. All cultures, all traditions adapt. The society in which we live certainly has an impact on how we need to see the world. So it's just an awareness thing to throw out there going forward. And then, relating to how we also deal with burnout. So the first thing we've uncovered, the tool, is that we need to acknowledge our feelings. Then we need to find out what gives us energy, because that's going to give us the ability to cope. So as soon as we're doing something that we enjoy, we will feel much stronger. We will have clarity of thought to be able to deal with what's happening around us. Another fancy term is psychological flexibility. And the analogy I like to use is a storm. So we don't all necessarily like storms, but we understand why we have to have them. Coping is saying, well, the storm's coming, I will survive, I will get through it. And it's a very sensitive topic here in KZN at the moment, because we were whacked a month ago, and then this weekend we were whacked again. So, and not to negate the tragic loss of life and damage. Storms will pass. Global warming is obviously highlighting this even more so, yet we will get through it. Storms are contradictory. We fear them, they make us anxious, but at the same time they bring us relief and they bring change. And it's a nice analogy to use in dealing with coping mechanisms, and also to deal with what psychological flexibility is at its core. It's learning to be able to adapt and to see through stuff and to get through stuff at the end of the day. And then, there's two more tools that I want to share with you around burnout. The one is resilience. So South Africans are known to be a resilient nation. We have the ability to overcome, and it means that we need to, when you get knocked down, you get up again. And we have a torrid, complicated, hurtful history, yet we keep on getting up. So it's a great skill, and it's something we need to practice. Some days we feel very resilient, other days we don't, but we have this innate ability. And the good news, once again, it is a skill. And like any skill, you can learn it. It takes practice. The more you practice resilience, the better you will be at it. And these are just two images that I threw in, that for me personally, as I mentioned earlier, I love going to the beach. It gives me absolute energy to cope with the world. It doesn't take away the problems, but I can cope. And then what I've started doing, I do quite a bit of traveling for my job. Fortunately, I enjoy traveling. So wherever I go to, I'm not a professional photographer. This is taken with my cell phone. I am supposed to go for a jog in the morning, but what I tend to do is go for a walk and take photographs. And my project is I just go and I seek beauty. So I go and try and find beauty. And this was in Kroonstad. Now, Kroonstad is not known for its beauty. However, if you look for beauty, you will find it. And that statement alone for me was pretty life-changing, because we can find the gems, we can find the glimmers in everything if we look for them. And there's actually a word for it. It's called querentia. So maybe you can throw this around your family and your office space, and you can have some fun with it. You can create a board at work, a whiteboard. You can go digital. You can do old school, where you can get people to bring something that represents their querentia. Now, querentia is a Spanish word that the English stole. It's a place where one feels safe, a place from which one's strength of character is drawn. So find out what people enjoy doing, their place, their things, their activities, and get them to bring it and do it yourself. Know what your querentia is. If you don't know what it is, go and find it. And then the last little concept, tool, tip, technique, trick I want to throw out to you is boundaries. Okay, we are appalling at boundaries. Boundaries are once again, we are either born with the boundary gene or not. This is a physical boundary. This is the Drakensberg. But we have personal boundaries, things in which we accept or which we don't accept. And why boundaries are so important is because without boundaries, this is what happens. There's the evidence. There's the science. Burnout and resentment. So you need to challenge yourself. First exercise, draw a list of people in your life that you're unable to put up a boundary, and you will find that those relationships are probably problematic. So that's where you start. Draw up this list. You may feel that you can't put up a boundary because you don't want to hurt people's feelings. You want to be nice. You want to say yes. And I can't see, but I can sense people are nodding their heads. You don't want to cause conflict, and you might not even know how to express yourself. So I will send you these slides. These are some amazing boundary statements to help us, because boundary statements are very clear. And they also are backed up by some empathy and some softness. It's always how you say something. And then this statement is also very close to my heart, because all the things that I've been sharing with you today are difficult. And discomfort is the price of admission to a meaningful life. So we have to actually spend some time digging in our place of discomfort to find out why we're behaving the way we're doing, or realigning our lives. And I think for most of us, that's what COVID has taught us, that we're reassessing what we want from life. So do it. Don't talk about it, action it. And if you don't put up boundaries, this is what's going to happen to you. You're not required to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Read that again. And that's what happens when we put up boundaries. So this is the how-to, which I will send you via the link. But it's not difficult. It's hard. And you need to practice. But it's possible. It's baby steps. As in this image, to implement something, rather see it like the image on the right, little steps of progress. But what we tend to do, we set these big audacious goals that we cannot achieve. So there's been a lot of research around habits instead of goals. So we need to change our habits instead of seeing these big, massive goals that we can't achieve. So the little dude on the left there is disillusioned, disappointed because he can't progress. But the little dude on the right is making progress. He's making movement. And there's the optimism, there's the ability to be resilient, and the ability that I'm moving in the right direction. So finally, if I had to sum up everything around boundaries, everything around burnout, you need to stay awkward. So you need to go on a personal journey to explore the things that are holding you back and the feelings that you can't name. To do that, you need to be brave. To do that, we need to be brave and courageous, and everybody can be brave. It is a skill. And finally, we need to be kind. So it's essential that whatever we do it with a generous heart, and we show empathy towards ourselves and towards others. And then what I've done at the end here, which I'll send to all of you, is just also sharing. So here's sharing. These are free contact numbers for a range of help calls for help that we all personally in this group may have, or we may want to share this with others in our families or in our teams at work. But I think we need to promote this sort of support and assistance all the time to take away the stigma that it's okay to make contact if I'm seeking help. So thank you very much for attending. I'm going to stay on. If you've got any questions, you want to type anything into the chats, I will answer them now. And if you're looking for me, those are my contact details. You can find me on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and via email or cell phone. And if I'm not there, then I'll be on the beach. But that's where you find me. If you've got any questions, please pop them into the chat. I will answer them now, or I'm also going to stay on if you want to put up your hand and unmute. So good luck. Go well. You have it in you. You may feel burnt out. It's okay. Acknowledge it. But we have solutions. There are things that we can do to challenge the system. Thank you, everybody, for your lovely, kind messages. Got any questions, please reach out. You can email me, phone me, or chat to me now. That would be great. Happy to stay on. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Charmaine. Yep, we're all in this together. We're not alone. So we must reach out and ask for help and to share and to chat with each other. Good. Anybody has any questions? Pop it in. We can unmute. Hi, Glynis. Are you still there? Put your hand up. Do you want to unmute? Or be unmuted? Yes, the recording. Yes, the recording will be available, and we'll send it to you.
Hi, David, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi.
There we go. I was trying to find how to unmute myself, but I couldn't find how to do that. And I'm so mad. Yes, It was 10:15, and I realized that I'd missed the session, and I'm just so mad with myself. So it would be amazing to access the recording from you if that's possible.
Absolutely. Yeah. HR Talk will send it out to all the participants and my slides.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay.
Cool.
Lovely. But just
Well,
the
I'm
last
glad you
15
joined
minutes
at the
was, yes, I did. Thank you. Just the last 15 minutes was just wonderful and just so intriguing. I actually did a dissertation in burnout, but
Wow.
so I just want as much information as I can from wherever, and I'm just loving it. So thank you for that.
Fantastic. No, it's a very interesting topic, and it's something, as you said, there's so many components to it, and it's also interlinked with so many other things. As you will know, it's very and what I'm enjoying about topics like this is it's both head and heart stuff. So it's both about emotions and about the science, the research behind it, which is brilliant, because so often these topics it's only emotion related. It's not scientifically backed. So really that's the beauty of it in this day and age. You've got to take it seriously, and businesses can't turn a blind eye and go, oh no, it's not serious.
And there's so many people, I think, in business so many businesses that are not really interested in their staff that have burnout, because from a profit perspective, it's like, well, you must move on. Let's bring the next one in.
No, exactly. You're not coping. Yeah, the argument, you're not coping. You can't handle pressure and stress. Don't work well under stress.
Exactly. Exactly. But sure.
Cool.
But wonderful. Thank you, David. Appreciate
Pleasure.
it. And sorry I missed you, but nice to meet you.
Cool. You too, Glynis.
Great. Okay, lovely. Okay, David. Bye. Bye.
David?
Yes.
There's a question just after the mute unmute one.
That's Michael. Can you read the question to me?
It says, how do you know that you are stressed?
Good question. The fact that you're asking that question is very relevant. So if you go through those initial 10 questions, and there's actually some lovely online free assessment that you can do. You just type in stress assessments, and you can do your own assessment, and it'll spew out whether you're stressed or not. But it's really as if you're feeling overwhelmed. If there's one high level definition, if you're just feeling things are not running smoothly and you're not coping, that's always a telltale sign that you're stressed. That's the red flag. And that's what you need to go to explore further. And now stress doesn't necessarily mean it's not necessarily a bad thing. If it's prolonged and it's affecting your ability to make decisions, then that's the red flag, because we all have to deal with a certain amount of stress in life. That would be the high level answer. If you're feeling you're not coping, you're not thinking clearly, you're getting anxious, you're getting worried about stuff, you're not sleeping, you're not feeling particularly optimistic about the future, then you need to go and explore and investigate that further on your own journey, and I always highly recommend to go and speak to a friend, or even go and see a counselor or psychologist, just to unpack what you're feeling, because sometimes we just need that perspective before we move on. I hope Michael's still with us.
past our time. So I think it's best we end it. Thank you very much for joining our webinar. Until the next webinar, thank you very much.